Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today, but you know what? You hear me say that every single time, but we are going to have a great show today. And guess what? Who is the star of the show? You guys are going to be the star of the show. Nabu. How are you doing today, senor?
I'm doing excellent.
We are going to have what again, Nabu? A great show, right? We're going to try our best to make sure and bring everything that everybody wants inmediatamente, ¿cierto?
Exactamente.
Hey, I like that. Hey, I have you talking other languages, man. Folks, we are going to have a great show today. Let me tell you, the title of the show today, and let me go ahead and close down this browser to make sure that I am transmitting everything correctly everywhere and not be taking out too much CPU. All right, here we go. Title of the show today is, here, folks, it's important. This is very, very important. The title of the show, we cannot allow Donald Trump to use racism as the springboard to a second term. And the subtitle of the show goes as follows: Trump can use racism to win back the White House, but the punditry has got it wrong. They think he is to keep they think he's doing it to keep his base in line. Did I write that wrong? They think it's to keep his base in line. That is not it at all. The subtitle needs editing. Oh my God, I let that go. That's what happens when you're in a rush. Anyhow, race is a stupid concept, but racism is a powerful tool. It behooves me how much value society has put on hue and pigmentation. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in, and because the vast majority of people are still attentive to that prism, we must work within those walls. You know, the prism has those 4 walls, or rather those 3 walls, right? And light goes in, good old light goes in, and it comes out in 7 different real, I don't remember the colors of the rainbow, but you know, it splits those colors up. It's 7, right?
Yeah, that's right. Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet.
There you go.
Is the actual scientific term.
Right. Yeah, there you go, man. I tell you, hey, that speaks well for all our schools, man, isn't it?
Hey, I'll say this: public education didn't it both served me and didn't serve me at the same time.
Okay, we'll talk about. I guess
that's another show.
That's another show. We'll do that on another show. Okay, the punditry continues to get it wrong. Trump is not complex. He is simple. You know, there are many insects and lower animal forms that do not have a lot of analytical power. In other words, they don't have the brains that we have. Our brains are complex entities that work in parallel form. That's why even though electrically we are slow. Electrically speaking, you know, Navu, we are slow. It can be measured in sort of milliseconds when we go from neuron to neuron to neuron. But high-powered computers, these guys are super fast. But guess what our brains are able to do? We work in parallel, which is a lot more efficient and a lot more powerful than the most powerful computers, as they have to kind of brute force as fast as they go, you know? So Trump's mind is simple. You know, there are many insects and lower animal forms that do not have a lot of analytical power, but they are wired for survival, and those circuits within their minds are quick. Trump is not very smart, but he instinctively knows how to survive and gets what he wants. He has no restriction because feelings, justice, the well-being of others, and other values attributed to basic humanity does not apply to him. His simple mind simply operates to the next survival point and good feeling point. Trump's one working instinct is the one that knows that the wild animal part of our brains that in many are still very reactive can be activated if at least for a few years to behave as he does in his permanent state of existence. In other words, he can use racism to activate fear, not only in his base, but in others. In other words, Trump is growing his base. Anyone who doubts that that just need to realize that his poll numbers went up when he made the squad of 4, unafraid, liberated, and unowned by no corporation or wealthy people, women of color, a clear and present danger to some. So that's what Trump did, right? Trump turned those 4 women of color, those 4 women that are owed to nobody, those 4 women that they don't owe their positions to anybody. A corporation is not paying them. They did it on their own. Facebook, the phone's ringing. They do all of that, right? They don't owe anything to anybody. But Trump makes them a clear and present danger. But anyhow, before I go to the program, folks, I want to remind all of our listeners that KPFT is a bastion of intelligent voices and programs. And as a political activist myself, my favorite programs are Think Wing Radio with
Mike Honig, and that's Mondays at 3.
Yes, sir. We also have Open Journal with
Dwayne Bradley and the crew on Mondays at 6 p.m.
And then we have Jazz Latino of Rocky Van Latin Jazz at its very best, hosted by
Juan Flores and Lupita on Tuesdays at noon.
Right, and they're on right before this
That's
program.
Right.
I mean, it's great. But then we have the one and only Jenner Asian Radio, a weekly radio program featuring an eclectic mix of Asian underground Bagra, Bollywood funk, Hindi Rai, where ancient sounds meet future beats. And that is with whom again?
That's with me and my crew. That's yours truly, Naboo and Yogi and Al, Triple X and the crew. And that's right after this show, so stay tuned for that.
Absolutely. So, folks, check out our full schedule at kpft.org, where you can find programming from music to politics to medicine to the eclectic. KPFT is a listener-supported public community radio station. So please, 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 please remember that if you like what you hear on KPFT, ensure we remain a strong, viable community radio station that provides news, programming, and information not influenced by whom?
The corporatocracy.
Folks, we got to make sure we cannot be influenced by the corporatocracy. We can't. But, we have today the blog of the week. Actually, this one was posted at Daily Coast on Sunday. Went over very well. So I usually start it this way. Do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
And here it goes. And Donna and Scott, I'm coming to you guys right after the blog post. So please hang with me. I want to talk to you. I want to hear your voices. Remember, this is your show. We must stop Trump from winning on the race card, and it starts with the mainstream media. Donald Trump is the ultimate shyster. The electoral college strategy that stumbled into worked out for many reasons on all sides that does not bear re-evaluating. But suffice it to say, it can work again if we forget a definition of insanity. Doing things the same and expecting a different result. The media gave Trump a pass on early by not explicitly calling him a racist. It seems that his racist tweet hit a nerve with the mainstream media. Recently, the beat DC co-founder and managing editor Tiffany Cross appeared on MSNBC and mocked the media for taking as long as they did to explicitly call him out. And I love the way she put it. She said, "This is the first time that the media have been so bold to say that President made racist comments," Cross said. "Oh, not comments of racial undertones. Oh, not things that some people found racist, but they actually called it out." And she continued, "I think had we called a thing 2 years ago when this president kicked off his campaign by calling Mexicans rapists and drug dealers," Cross said, "had we called a thing in 2011 when he talked about Obama being a birther, had we called a thing decades ago, then he called for the murder of the Central Park Five, the now exonerated five. In effect, had we made Trump's behavior one that made him persona non grata on TV or elsewhere, the normalization that he has brought to overt racism would be less vogue. But now he has made racism vogue again. He has made it vogue. He has made it that people can talk about it and not feel all so bad. Even as the media are being more explicit in calling out the president for his overt racism, an inkling still remains to create a whataboutism and false equivalence. It is like they feel a need to balance a deserved harshness on the president with a sacrificial innocent being. Recently, MSNBC pundit Zerlina Maxwell had to check Steve Kornacki on a panel where he attempted to create a false equivalence between Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and the squad and the president. When addressing Zerlina Maxwell, Steve Kornacki attempted in every subtle manner to create a false equivalence between the president's personal attack and pettiness with Ilhan Omar's statements. Maxwell did not allow that slight to get very far. "What did she say that was a personal attack on the president?" Zerlina Maxwell asked. "I don't see impeachment, just to be clear, a personal attack on the president. That is their constitutional obligation to hold this administration accountable for perceived crimes which were outlined in the Mueller report." She didn't come out and call the president names. None of them attacked the president personally. None of them called out his patriotism. What I saw today was patriots come out and represent the country. The normalization of Trump has already occurred. That is why no amount of negative news has been effective in moving his polls substantially. In fact, his attack on the 4 congresswomen of color, the squad, resulted in a bump in a poll among Republicans. As the election nears, many will be tempted to go after the president. That would be futile. Those who hate the president hate him. Those who love him love him. Getting down in the gutter with Trump, is at best a neutral endeavor. But that is what the mainstream media want for sensationalism. So what are progressives to do? We know that Trump's poll numbers won't bulge by negative revelations or negative acts on his part. By the same token, we know the media want progressives to comment on every childish tweet or utterances he gives. We change the narrative. We give a quick answer about the president's behavior and then immediately pivot to jobs that will get created by the progressives' policies we will pass when elected. Congresswoman Katie Porter illustrated recently how one grabs the narrative irrespective of the subject. She immediately answered the question with just a few words, number one. Number two, she then went on the attack, pointing out the opponent's lie. Number three, she then took over the narrative to put the message she wanted to place in the ethos. Ultimately, specify how she will get the people's work done to overcome the administration failures. While the president fixates on race, we admonish his stance and immediately pivot to what Americans get when they elect us. We do not ignore the battle. We simply do not allow it to consume the space. We ensure space remains for Americans to see the failures and the potential solutions. Even racists want jobs and more. Even racists needs jobs and more. Folks, that is the blog of the week. So we go ahead and we start with Donna. Come on in, Donna.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Donna.
Come on in, Donna.
Thank you.
Yes, Donna, go ahead.
Okay, yes, let me talk. Okay, I want to say this. I'm so sorry. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your show.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just wanted to say that we must be careful not to let Donald Trump which we know, number one, the racism shocked us all, especially coming from the President of the United States. There's no question about that. But the most important thing is we must remember we must vote him out.
Right.
We must not let our anger or our fear rule us. We must use our democracy to vote out this racist president. That's what he is. There's just no way of hiding it any longer. And what I wanted to tell people is to please remember to make sure that you are registered to vote. Make sure that all of your information is up to date. I am so serious about making sure that we understand about voting that I even started my own nonprofit called Vote Voice to get the message out in the state that I live in. I want to tell people this. You know, a lot of good things happened in the midterms. There was a lot of new laws about voting, right? Well, people need to understand this, and I found this out from our city's clerk. They didn't receive any extra money to implement most of these changes.
Always the case.
Yes, and what has happened is they're trying to implement these changes with a limited amount of people. So they need everywhere in your state, wherever you are, election workers. Not the way Trump was calling people to be, whatever it was he was calling those poor people to be.
Right.
But we need election workers. You need to call your city clerk's office. It is a paid position a lot of people do not realize. I'll give you an example. The state that I work in, and I won't say the state, on election day, the compensation is $130.
Wow. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
they train you.
I know because I work the polls sometimes, and it's very little. And that's about what you get if you spend the whole 10 hours out there at the polls.
Okay. Excellent. They have computer training. They have a meeting, and they will pay you to go to those meetings and the training.
Well, Texas doesn't pay you to go to the trainings.
Okay. In the state I'm in. Okay, see, this is why each person, I'm so glad you're interjecting, because each person needs to go to their city clerk's office in their state and find out what the requirements are. And young people, get out there and work those polls. We are going to defeat this racist president.
Donna, did you say that you have a nonprofit that you formed to help people vote?
Yes, sir, to get out the message.
Is that only in your state or throughout the country?
I help everywhere.
Okay, since this is a nonprofit for voting, we do not do advertising here, but this is a nonprofit for voting. I want everything that we do to help everybody vote in this country. I want people to be aware. So go ahead and give a URL real quickly before I move to the next caller.
Okay, yes, sir. Well, I started the nonprofit so that I could help people.
Just give me the URL.
It's Vote Voice at votevoice.com.
Votevoice.com, folks. Let me tell you something. First of all, we started this stuff on racism. There's a one big important, and you moved it to voting, which is very important. There are two things I want to say. First of all, on racism, please don't follow the punditry, folks. Racism is a cancer, and it's a cancer that can. Well, I'll do this after I get to the next call. But listen, go vote, folks. Donna, thank you so kindly for your call. Okay.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for your show.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful day, Donna. Okay, let's go ahead and get to Scott. Come on in, Scott.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Will Medicare for All abolish private insurance coverage, or is it just a public option?
Let me tell you what. First of all, I think we have to get the narrative right. A lot of people are saying Medicare for all and get rid of private insurance altogether, right? Here's the thing. I want to modify the way I talk about this. First of all, insurance in the healthcare system is a fraud. And I say that without hesitation. Insurance in the healthcare system is a fraud, just like many parts of our medicine. The pharmaceutical is a fraud because we originally designed the drugs, and then after it goes into the manufacturing process and the further research by private industry, they take it all and we get back nothing back from being a part of it. So that is something we have to watch. But now let me get to the Medicare for All. I don't want us to go ahead and sell Medicare for All as killing private insurance.
Okay, I think it was presented that way at the recent debate.
Actually, it was. And I think I think that was an error. I want private insurance.
Or it may have been the managers that were presenting it that way, and many of the candidates were a little caught unaware.
Right, but I don't think so, because I think there are many Medicare for All proponents who know that health insurance is such a cancer that they do want it dead. The thing about it is, I don't need to kill health insurance. It's going to die its own death when it has to compete with honesty and reality.
I would hope so.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it should die on its own. And let me give an example. Medicare for All should be as follows. Medicare for All should be as follows. We give every United States citizen a basic thing that we as a society say is the health care that everybody has a right to. Okay?
Now, there is a real bill on file.
Yes, there is.
I think it's H.R. 1384.
1384. But
I haven't researched it on this question, but it is subject to revision in committee.
It's not written completely.
It's not been
right. It's not officially written
in committee yet.
You're correct, sir. You're correct. Jayapal is the author of that bill.
Right.
Okay? And it's not completely, it's not flushed out, everything. My contention is as follows. We as a society determine what Medicare for All is going to be, what all the basic services are going to be that we say everybody has a right to. If you want to walk into a hospital where petals are dropped on the floor for you to walk in, if you want your bed sprayed with perfume and all of that, you can buy an insurance policy to do that if you want to. If you want to have, super speedy access, in other words, there are things that we can say, okay, if you want to buy that, if you want to spend an extra amount of dollars for that kind of service, be my guest. So I want to tell people, don't advertise and say, I want to kill insurance, because what I'm saying, I think personally, making money to pay a bill on the sick, and I think it's simply wrong. But again, that's just me. And I think health insurance would die on its own volition, because people are going to say, wait a minute, I don't live my life to be sick.
Market forces.
Well, I don't, the market is mythical, okay? But that's another story. We can get into that some other time.
But this is an example. This is an example of market choice. If consumers prefer the public option, it wins in the market.
Well, there's a problem with that, and let me tell you what I mean by there's a problem. Because if you have a public option that competes with a private sector, what the private sector is going to do is it's going to whether it's legal or not, what they're going to do is they're going to find a way so that they get healthy people, and all the other folks that are sick will jump to the private option. And then the private option is going to look like a failure because all the sick people are being navigated to that option. Okay,
that could be.
And what I'm saying is there are legal ways, even if you say every insurance company has to insure everybody, there are legal ways that they can find because the politicians are going to leave loopholes in there to allow legal ways for these insurance companies to screw you as they are today. And that's why a lot of these people say we don't want the public option, we just want Medicare for All, and we want no private insurance. I am a little bit more negotiative than that. I can say, let them have private insurance. We are just going to say what we are going to pay taxes for as healthcare as a right. And after that, health insurance companies, private, you want to be whatever to use private health insurance, be my guest. Anything else, Scott? I need to go to the other call.
I am finished, and thank you.
Thank you so kindly for your call. You have a wonderful day, sir. Okay, Tommy, come on. Tori. Come on in, Tori.
Hey, I want to talk about how politics is culture.
Yes.
It's basically a subset of culture.
Yes.
So basically our political problems are therefore ultimately
a cultural problem. Yes.
And, at some point, everything just kind of touches everything else. Our, psychology, our biology.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about racism, which was the theme you're talking about,
right.
Humans discriminate in a lot of ways.
Right.
And it's part of our survival mechanism. It's how we, determine, what's a edible plant and, what's a bear and what's danger. This is how we evolve, is by discriminating. It's like how our eyes are connected to our brains.
Let me stop you a second. Tori, I want to stop. I need to stop you a second, Tori. I need to stop you a second. There are two parts of our evolutionary brain. There's a part that I call simple, which is it's a major part of Trump's brain. And that simple part is a part that behaves exactly as you just stated. But there's more to it. But continue, please.
Yeah, so, we can't change our biology, but we can change our responses to things that we come across in the modern world with, updating our social norms.
Right.
We can actively work to transform monocultural norms into multicultural norms.
Right.
And we can't change our psychophysiology, but we got to change our culture.
Right.
And so that's, ultimately what it's all about, because it's not just Trump, it's not just politics. It's, humans, and as we transition into multicultural societies, we have to update our culture.
But I want to tell people about why so much though is a learned behavior, okay? Because you talk about people that look different or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. How comes the differences that we look at in society today are based on pigmentation and not based on some other attribute? Why aren't we just scared of taller people versus shorter people, fatter people versus skinny people? So I mean, what you're saying is true as far as the survival mechanism of our mind. Go ahead.
We're mammals.
Right.
And everything is mammal behavior. And, in the world of mammals, there's alphas and betas, and, people are afraid of the unknown.
I don't disagree with you, but what I'm saying that I don't want people to get out of the message. I know you, so I know your message is a positive message. But the part of your message that I think I want to clarify is that a lot of people would use your message as an excuse to why, in as much as racism is wrong, it is understandable from a physiological standpoint. And my contention is the physiological standpoint that you're talking about is more learned than being truly physiological. Because as an example, like as I stated...
Well, learn now, so you're getting into the cultural part. And that's what I'm saying is that, this is how we attenuate our biology, is with culture and with learning.
Right.
And I was a teacher for a long time, and I'm kind of old, and I remember...
No, you're not old. Come on now.
Things used to be, and I'm working with these young people that are growing up in a much more multicultural environment than I ever was.
Right.
And they don't see things the way that people you're in my age do. And so they've learned a different mode. They're more multicultural just from birth because they've got multicultural families. They've got a black mom and a white dad, or vice versa.
Right.
And they just don't see things from a cultural perspective. They're not screwed up like we are.
Right. And I think that it's very important what you just said. I mean, it is super important what you just said. And the thing that I wanted to make clear is that a lot of these things are not only learned, but exactly as you speak about cultural in nature. And what I try to tell people, though, going forward for this particular election is not to underestimate exactly what Trump is doing. And you give me a segue into making this statement. Everybody is talking about Trump is using racism to solidify his base. I am saying Trump is using racism to expand his base. Because here's something, Tori. You ever want to make a change in something, but you can't find a reason to make... You want to make that change, but you can't find a reason to make a change. So you're looking for that one thing that's going to allow you to make a change, right? And that's what Trump is doing with his brand of racism, right? He needs to get a few white people in select areas to make a change. These are people that are not inherently racist, but these people also are succumbing to certain types of peer pressure. So they would like a justification to be able to say why they're going to make that change. And making the squad, which is completely comprised of women of color who they are purported to not like a country, who they are purported to talk badly about the white culture, who are purported, all these things are false, but who do that, give those people who are on the tip an excuse to say, okay, I have a good reason now why I can let the inner demons come out. And that's what I was trying to tell people. Trump is not trying to solidify his base. They're solid enough. He's trying to expand his base.
Scapegoating people for political gain is nothing new.
Right.
He's playing an old card.
Hey,
there you go. See through it or not?
There you go. Hey, Tori, thank you very much for your call, my brother. We need those types of info. You take care now.
Have a good one.
Bye bye. Okay, Tommy, come on in. Tommy.
Hey, Gilberto.
Is this my Tommy, the owner of the trucking company?
Yes.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm actually on the road. I haven't been able to call you because sometimes I go to areas where my phone doesn't get signal. But I didn't get to my point last time I talked to you, so I want to get to that. But before I do, I want to preference this call by saying I don't like Donald Trump. I agree with you on his intelligence or lack thereof. I agree with you. I really do. I don't like the guy.
Right.
One thing that I do like is I like his policies. One policy in particular is tax cuts.
Okay. I need to stop you right there. Hold on. No, I'm going to let you talk. I just need to tell folks. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. After Tommy, I have one call and all other lines are open. So get ready and call in. Let me hear your point of view. All right, go ahead, Tommy.
All right. So you only have one more caller, so I have 28 minutes.
No, you don't. Because the phones are going to light up. Come on, folks. 713-526-5738. Go ahead.
All right. So, as I stated, I don't really care for Donald Trump, the person, but I respect him as my president. He's your president, too. I don't know if you want to admit that or not. But
of course he's my president.
Okay. Well, look, here's a difference between giving a company a tax cut versus, this is what you said, that giving students for giving their debt is like a tax cut. It's actually not, if I could explain. That's the difference between soft money and hard money.
Okay.
Giving a company a tax cut, the government doesn't give the company money. It just lets them keep the money that they've made.
Right.
Money that exists.
Right.
Forgiving a debt is soft money. That's not money that exists. That's money that is owed for a service. I'll tell you something else that I heard you say.
Yes, sir.
And I want you to respond to that.
Sure.
Last week we had a woman call in. She sounded like a lovely lady. And she talked about, I don't know if you remember this, but she said that she went to school, she acquired debt, and she had a hard time paying off her debt.
Right.
And so I'm listening, right? And she says, and so my daughter, I don't want her to go through that. And so, pay off her debt. And you agreed with her.
Right.
And I was just so taken aback because I feel the exact opposite. My daughter's just now enrolling into college. I want her to work for her education. I want her to go to school. I want her to work. And I want her, I'm going to help her, yes, but I want her to work for it. I want her to pay it because I want her to know the worth of education.
Right.
Just to forgive a debt, a school or university, whatever it may be, provides a service.
I think you misunderstand I think,
and
I agree with you, Tommy.
Yes.
I agree with you that we need to give our kids, show them some responsibility and let them work for more. Okay. Initially, I didn't do that with mine because I had to work so hard when I went to college. I wanted my kid to have it easier. So and still, I don't regret doing that because I think I have a wonderful kid and she's still in school working very hard. She's going to be in a lot of debt because she's going into a field that requires so much education. That said, I don't disagree with what the advice I gave the agreement that I had with the woman either, because here's the deal, all right? And this is the important part. Let's talk. You brought up tax cuts, and you brought up not only tax cut, but you brought up the other issue about
forgiving debt.
Right. So here forgiving debt. Here's the first part about tax cut. If
you made that comparable way,
right? No, it's not. Let me finish. Tax cuts for companies. If that company is going to take that money and reinvest it back into the economy, they can always deduct that, which means they would not have paid taxes on it. But if it's just a matter of giving tax cuts for the sake of tax cuts, hell no. And the reason why is the math doesn't add up. I try to talk to people about the capitalist system isn't mine. I didn't design it. Okay. It was designed by Smith and these other guys. I had nothing to do with it. That it's a failure, I had nothing to do with it. That it automatically takes money and move it from the masses to a few, I had nothing to do with that. But what I can have something to do with is how to mitigate its failures. And how do we mitigate its failures? That capital grows at 7% when the economy at large grows at 2% means that I can mitigate it by taxing that excess out. That Steve Bezos has $160 billion, which is really the unpaid labor and unpaid whatever of all the other people that he didn't give that excess money to. I can take some of that back.
If the Amazon employees are comfortable with what they're getting,
that's
so
not
the
no, but that's
wrong.
It doesn't matter. It does not matter if it is mythical. Let me tell you why, brother. I don't talk over you. I don't want to talk over you. So give me a chance to talk as well, please. I beg you. Okay. Here's the thing. When I say mythical, right? People like to make believe like this market is some abstract thing out there that works and that you have to follow those rules of that the market has its own rules and we're just living within the market. The market is a man-made thing. And what we have taught people to believe is that it's not a man-made thing, that is somehow the market. No, all the laws of the markets are man-made. And the reason why I think I humbly say that you're wrong about if the people at Amazon feel that they are happy with the wages that they're getting, it should be okay, is that it makes no mathematical sense. That individual Amazon employee doesn't understand, or anyone for that, and this is not degrading to, I'm not trying to be, trying to knock them or anything, but what I'm saying is, in the totality of an economy, if the wealthy is growing at 7% and the total masses of employment is only growing at 2%, the economy is growing at 2%, it's a mathematical impossibility. It's unsustainable mathematically. So what I'm saying is, I don't care if that Amazon employee is happy with what they're saying. To sustain an economy and prevent inequality, or to prevent others from hoarding the money they don't deserve, we have to find a way to correct the aberration within the capitalist system. And the way you do that is for government to tax it out of there. It's that simple. It's not something that's saying you're bad or you're good. It's just a mathematical reality. Nothing more, my brother.
It sounds like a tad bit of jealousy because I don't care how much money Jeff Bezos has.
It's not.
I honestly don't care how much anybody. I don't care how much anybody.
My
has.
brother,
I really don't. I care about me,
brother,
and I hope that people feel that way. It doesn't matter.
Sir, I swear to you, as far as I am concerned, it has nothing to do with jealousy or envy of what others have made. Because the kind of person that I am, right? Personally, I'm going to get personal now. I don't need much to live on. I've made a whole lot before. Most of it is gone now that I've done most of this activism stuff. But I live a simple life, right? And I love simplicity. For those people who want to do great things, great for them as well. All I'm saying is to sustain an economy where you don't have eventual indentured servitude. You have to have a way to mitigate the aberration within a capitalism. And that aberration is that by design, monies go up to the top, and the people at the top, because they have pricing power, because they have the power to do everything, eventually, mathematically speaking, will get it all, and everybody would just be servants. That's just how it turns out, mathematically speaking.
Okay, I know you got another call.
Yes, sir.
Right now,
but check it out. Yes, sir.
I do want to hear your explanation of the difference between hard money and soft money.
Okay.
Soft money, in a simpler way.
Yes, sir.
I can hang up and listen, but I'll give you an example. Soft money to me is when you go to a restaurant and the waiter comes, takes your order, serves you food. At the end of your meal,
yes,
they
sir.
bring you the bill, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so that bill is whatever. It's affordable, probably. If you ate by yourself. How about if I just tell the waiter, "Hey, no, I'm gonna go try to fight this and have my bill forgiven." And if everybody did that, then the restaurant wouldn't make any money.
And you're right.
That's a service that I owe. So somebody served me, I owe that.
You're right.
A school served a student, gave them an education. Now that student has to pay for it.
Tommy, you're right. You're right. You know, I think I can't disagree with what you just said. You're absolutely right. Right. In fact, I agree with you. The thing about the part about the loans and the amount people pay for college has a different story. And I'm coming to the next two calls pretty soon. The reason I need to answer it this way, Tommy, is the following. The way what we have done to our students is another fraud. Okay? And this doesn't have to do with, and I wish people would understand this, right? We created a system so bankers could clean up. This is how it used to work, okay? It used to work this way. The bankers loan you money to go to school. That money was guaranteed by the federal government that if you defaulted on that money, the federal government made the banker whole. What that meant is that the banker was charging you a whole lot of interest and taking zero risk. The definition of what you like to call socialism, right? But I mean, so corporate socialism that was. In other words, the bankers were taking no risk. They were just a pass through. And if the ultimate person defaulted, they were made whole by the government. But why is it that the students had to take out so many loans in the first place? Because we as a society decided constantly to give corporations big tax breaks so that whereas people could go to school at an affordable rate, the price of college continued to rise. It's not that the price of college was rising, it's just that the corporate share of college was that much less. So the corporations got our services. In other words, the corporations were no longer paying for education. The people who were going to be employed by these corporations paid for the education. So the corporate folks got loans, sold these people loans that they have to pay back with interest. When these people go back to work for corporations, the corporations also got the services for free. In other words, they didn't have to educate the people that they no longer paid college to educate. It was like a double-edged sword, and at the same time, you had to pay them interest to having been educated. What I'm saying is the racket that we have by private corporations on the individual is amazing. And the problem is that it's done in such a cloaked manner, most Americans don't see that they're being screwed. And the reason they can grow by 7% and the economy grow by 2% is that they're screwing us. It's that simple, Tommy.
I think we're obviously going to have to agree to disagree.
That's fine. But you have a brother.
Circles. But like I said,
yeah.
I agree with you on Trump as far as his lack of intelligence. I don't like the guy. I don't. I like his policies in particular.
Thank you, brother. Hey, Tommy.
Anyway, all right, talk to you later.
Always great talking to you, brother. You have a good one, okay? Bye-bye.
All right, you too.
Bye. Okay, Jack, come on in. Jack? Yeah, you're in, Jack.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, I was calling relative to the lady who called in earlier about suggesting or asking that people make a point of seeking a job as a poll worker in any of the upcoming elections. I'm a little concerned.
Okay.
I have considerable experience myself in that area. Now, my comments have nothing to do with whichever side of the ledger sees on as far as what she sees appropriate for candidates. Okay? Nonpartisan. As a poll worker, you are, at least for that day, an employee of the county and state in which you reside.
Yes.
You are sworn in, as you know, okay? And that oath very specifically points out that while you are performing the duties of a poll worker, you are to be completely and absolutely neutral, not to engage in any activity of any kind that would indicate your favorability or unfavorability towards a certain position or candidate.
Right.
Now, to not do that is, in fact, a felony.
True.
So the woman seemed to be either as ignorant of the responsibilities of a sworn-in poll worker, or she's actually inadvertently encouraging people to potentially commit a criminal act.
I'm lost. What did she say that made you say that? Because maybe I've missed it.
Well, it was apparent from, like I said, and this has nothing to do with her politics, but it was apparent what her politics were.
Uh-huh.
And she was suggesting that those people who I guess you might term as activist or more than the normal amount interested in politics and the outcome of an election, sign up, make a point of signing up to be a poll worker for the expressed intention, hers, of defeating Donald Trump.
Okay, let me back up. I think I understand what you're saying. Now, you see, this is how we can take things in two different manners, right? Because I heard her say that as well. And let me tell you what I inferred from that. I inferred from that we know, or we assume that where Donald Trump could effect fraud in the polling centers, he would. So having us there, meaning activists on any side, activists on, in her case, which would be the left side, would actually be there as to make sure that does not occur. So, I mean, I don't think it was to be biased in the manner. Yes, they would be biased, and every single election worker, and I've worked election, I've been an election judge, I've been all of that before, right? And they're all biases, and I've actually seen how, right here in Texas, how certain election workers,
and as an election judge, what did you do about observing that?
And by the way, Donna let me back up. Donna wanted to say, and you know, she left a definite message, say that she was not being partisan at all. Her intent was not to be partisan. And
I beg to differ with.
And I understand, and that's fine. I think it's okay for all of us to infer certain things. Now, I'll tell you from my personal view, sir, Jack, is that. When I go to the polls, in as much as I take that oath, I am always on the lookout, especially being in a very conservative area that I am, that I don't see a bias towards the lesser amount of what people that are purported or may seem to be progressive coming in get any different treatment. And I don't do anything to disobey the law, but I am cognizant that, you know, people do that all of the times.
Well, I think you have to, as a logical person, and I'm going to assume that you are, in fact, a logical person.
I hope I am.
You have to assume,
yes,
or not be aware of that, improprieties at the polling place are committed by both parties, both sides of the ledger.
Of course.
Okay? You by your own definition, you serve as a judge or employee, a poll worker in a conservative district. So you are on the lookout for improprieties by the conservatives.
Yes.
Well, frequently I am employed as a judge in distinctly far left precincts.
Right.
Okay? And unless I see something that is in clear violation of the law, I cannot express my own views. And my views are as an independent, quite frankly.
Right.
Okay? I consider myself a patriot, okay, not a Democrat or a Republican. Okay, I am a first-generation American. All right, my folks got here not across the Rio Grande; they arrived on steamships. But in either event, it makes me a first-generation American. And I believe in this country. I was taught to believe in this country.
And there's nothing that you've said.
We are good, we are bad, but we're still the best of anything that people.
Jack, there's nothing that you've said.
And her suggestion that if you're activist on the left, get a job as a poll worker because you may in some way be able to influence the outcome of the voting, at least at that one place. And that constitutes, encouraging a criminal
Jack,
act.
Here's the thing.
And I think the people who heard her may or may not realize that should they get there and do anything in violation of the oath that they take that day, they are, in fact, subject to criminal prosecution.
And, Jack, here's the deal, Jack. I honestly, first of all, I do think you're a patriot. I mean, the fact that you came over here in a steamship, first-generation American, and you do all of that. You see, that's the thing with me. I am not going to try to debate anybody's patriotism. If you tell me you're a patriot, you're a patriot. There's nothing that you've said to me that sounded unpatriotic or anything of that nature. There's nothing that Donna said to me that sounded unpatriotic. In fact, also, there's nothing that Donna said to me that gave any activist that's going to be a poll worker the indication that she wanted them to break the law. I'll tell you better. I do want activists, and I don't know if you consider yourself an activist, but I want activists on all sides to go out there and become poll workers and make sure the election is fair. I don't want an election where, because like I said, I'm in a conservative area, and I have seen people treat other folks in my conservative area who they deem maybe not be conservative differently, less helpful, etc., than otherwise. So what Donna, I think what Donna says has a hell of a lot of merit, because, no party, no ideology should control the polls. We should go to the polls and all follow the law, and checks and balances are a good thing. You as a conservative independent would be great at the polls, just like Donna and whoever activists on the left that she gets would be great at the polls. We are all responsible for following the law. Don't you agree, sir?
No.
Okay.
Because what you just said depends on personal integrity and motivation.
Say that again?
Right? Much better than suggesting that activists become poll workers.
Yeah.
Just have them call the same number, okay?
Yeah.
And ask to be made a poll watcher. The poll watcher, as you know, they are there strictly to monitor
right.
the operation of that particular precinct.
I think
they do not vote at that. They do not vote at that precinct.
Jack, I'm going to tell you something. I get you. I understand all of that, but let me tell you where I think, in my humble opinion, you don't get it. Okay, there are a lot of things that another poll person can see that a poll watcher cannot. In other words, if I am at that poll. Remember, I see what numbers go in and how the computer thinks, how we finalize the data and all of that, all right? I want people on all sides also working the polls, because I am not naive enough to believe that if we have a precinct where it is just a set of folks out there that not necessarily as benign as you are, that they may do something. I don't have the faith there, and that is the reason I think when Donna tell activists, especially in conservative areas, activists on the left to go out there, I want them out there. I want them employed by the state. I want them to be honest. I want them to follow the law, but I want them to be watching the poll worker next to them.
Why then, okay, given your personal political leaning,
yes, sir,
okay, which I think we both agree
is left.
To the left.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Then why, in fact, do you seek to be employed in a conservative district other than to snipe at what you perceive to be irregularities?
I live in a conservative...
Why don't you get yourself a nice liberal district?
No, I live in a conservative district, and I love where I live, and that's the reason.
Yeah, but you can work in any district.
But no, I want to be there.
Poll workers and poll judges are not necessarily employed in the precinct.
Right.
In fact, it's probably a good idea that they're not.
But I tell you
and
better.
You also fail to point out that, at least in Texas, you have a presiding judge and an alternate judge.
Yes, we do.
And they must, by law, come from different parties.
You're making my point.
They are, in fact, nominated by the party in question.
You just made my point, sir. You just made my point. You just made my point. I appreciate that for making my point.
Your reasoning.
You just made my point, because that is exactly the reason we have that. You're a good man. Thank you so kindly for calling, Jack. You keep listening and you keep calling, all right, brother?
Only when I hear something so bizarre or absurd that I'll be compelled to call.
Hey, you know what? I still love you, brother. Have a good one. All right, let's go to Tim. Come on in, Tim.
Yes, this is Jim.
Jim, come on in, Jim.
Yes, I wanted to talk about Trump.
Yes.
And racism.
Yes.
And the statements he's made about go back where you came from.
Yes.
This probably was back in the 90s. I was watching the news one night, and a cab driver was going to make a right turn on red downtown, or looked like he was going to, and a foot patrol officer came up to him and told him that he couldn't do that. He would give him a ticket, but he didn't stop there. He continued to berate the man and told him, "I'll send you back where you came from." Well, the cab driver had recorded this on his phone, which was down in his door. And any case, what happened? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Any case, what happened? They came back on the news, that anchor man, and he says that officer has been fired. So, which I might add to that, it's kind of strange. Thinking back on it, I kind of think it's kind of strange that an officer would get fired for that, but not get fired for shooting somebody. But
no kidding, huh?
But in any case, that statement has been considered derogatory for years, since its beginning, probably.
Right.
To send somebody where they came from, or based on their ethnicity or national origin, religion, race, anything.
Right.
So I wanted to point that out. But as far as this last caller about the polls, my question is, what about the caucuses? Have you been going to the caucuses?
Well, in Texas, we don't have the two-step anymore, so we don't have the caucuses anymore. But when we had the caucuses, I went to it every time, yes.
Well, yes, they ended that after Obama, because if you remember, Obama got all his people, they organized, they got all their people to the caucus.
Yes, I remember well. He won the caucus and lost the popular. Yeah, I remember that well.
Yeah, but nowadays, I asked the last time I was at went and voted, I asked about the caucus, and I was given a piece of paper ripped off from a notebook and wrote a piece of paper there.
Right.
Now, does that sound like they wanted me at the caucus?
No. No. And and that is what I try to explain to the Jack who called before, and that is it's that simple, right? I want an adversarial, a potentially adversarial set of judges out there, and he pointed out something that is true. In Texas, you always have a Republican and a Democrat there, and that's important. The reason what Donna called and said was important. A lot of times you don't have that in Texas. In other words, you always have the Republican judge in almost every precinct, but you almost always have to fight to find, for some reason, the progressive side, the Democratic side. Yes. And what she was trying to tell folks is, please, folks, go do your job.
Yes, but what I was saying about the caucus, if you don't show up at the caucus and find out where it's at, even though the vote's already been taken, that's where all the policies go forth.
Right.
So you have to be there to do that. Otherwise, it's controlled by guess who? The conservative or moderate wing of the party.
And that is true. And that's the reason why, Donna, notice I asked Donna for her URL or whatever, because I think what she's doing is something that needs to be done. I don't know this person or whatever, or even what state she's in. But the important thing, I think, is that these things need to be done. Tim, thank you so kindly for the call. Anything else you have to say real quickly?
No, that's it. Thank you, sir.
You have a wonderful day. Folks, we are about a minute or two to the end of the show, and we actually got all the calls cleared. But, hey, let me tell you, folks, I want to make this clear about when I talk about the punditry and the punditry not getting it right and the punditry having to get it right. If we keep on this belief that somehow Trump is just trying to activate his base, and somehow what he's doing isn't going to have an effect, I think it's something that we better get rid of real quickly. Forget about what you've seen on TV. Because these guys, for them, it's just a matter of how do we have the latest thing to get the latest eyeballs onto the screen. Now, look, I want eyeballs on my website. I want eyeballs everywhere as well. But I'm not going to try to do that by changing the flow or changing the possibility of what's going on. I'm not going to do that. Bottom line is the following. Trump is using the race card not to appease his base, not to hold on to his base. He's doing it to grow the base. For all of you listeners that are listening to me, it is important that this message gets across to your friends and your friends' friends and your families and all of that. And the reason why it is so important for that to occur is because you are going to have to inoculate them from something, from that part of your brain that is still functionally, as I was talking to Terry about. It is your job to do that. Your job for being aware and able to do that. Please make sure to do that. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And do you know how I end this program? In the last 3, 2, 1, I am out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.